The manor stood like a forgotten wound at the edge of Hilltown. Weathered stone, cracked windows, and ivy-like veins creeping up its surface. The iron gate creaked open, and the heavy wooden doors yielded without resistance. Inside, the air was stale with mildew and dust. A once grand staircase rose before them, flanked by doorways leading to forgotten rooms. To the right stood a grand piano, its paint dulled and chipped, its keys yellowed with age. Naturally suspicious, they spent far too long inspecting and attempting to move the piano, convinced it hid something. But its frame was bolted fast to the floor. Again and again they tried to move the piano, more and more interesting and unusual ways. Frustrated, they opted to explore further. Room by room they pressed on, until they opened the doors to the dining hall, and were met with a nightmare. Twisted, half-melted figures of what were once townsfolk turned to face them. Their eyes glowed faintly with unnatural light. Some still wore the remnants of butcher aprons, tavern dresses, and guard uniforms, mocking memories of their former lives. With no time to speak, the creatures charged. Wilhelm braced himself, intercepting the first mutant strike with a crash of steel and flesh. He retaliated with a brutal upward cleave, severing its malformed arm. Shadow darted into the shadows of the long dining table, emerging behind one of the creatures to drive his daggers deep into its spine. Eldrelon called upon the fury of the storm, unleashing a bolt of chain lightning that arced between two mutants, bursting them into charred husks. Yet, even as they fell, the adventurers did not go unharmed. One mutant tore into Eldrelon's side with jagged bone claws, forcing him back. Wilhelm's arm bled from a deep gash. Still, they stood victorious, breathless, weapons bloodied. Eventually, they reached the master bedroom. Among scattered notes and dusty books, they uncovered a folded sheet of music, one noted in unusual runes. Intrigued, they returned to the piano, and to their amazement, the tune opened a secret compartment beneath it. A hidden staircase spiraled down into darkness. Below, they found a laboratory. Arcane symbols lined the walls. Alchemical vats pulsed with an eerie green glow, and inside them, half-submerged villagers twitched in unnatural slumber. Standing before them was Lady Penelope Windmire, now pale, eyes shrunken, but still unmistakably regal. Beside her loomed two grotesque flesh golems, stitched from multiple bodies, each the size of an ogre. "You don't understand," she whispered. "I'm so close. My husband, I can bring him back. This orb, it's the last piece." But when her eyes fell upon the white orb in Eldrelon's satchel, her demeanour snapped, her sorrow twisted into fury. "Give it to me! It's mine!" With a guttural roar, the flesh golems surged forward. Wilhelm stepped into the charge, axe meeting brute flesh. Every strike against the golems felt like hitting stone. Blows landed, but they endured, relentless. Shadow weaved between the behemoths, drawing blood in careful, calculated slashes. Eldrelon and Penelope duelled with magic, her necrotic sorcery clashing violently with his evocation spells, Shadow and Storm ripping the lab asunder. The golems proved nearly unstoppable. One backhanded Wilhelm across the room, breaking a table in half. Eldrelon was caught in a necrotic blast that drained the colour from his skin and dropped him to his knees. But the tide turned. Shadow lured one of the golems into an unstable vat, then ignited it with a thrown oil flask, engulfing it in flame. Wilhelm, bloodied but unbowed, leapt onto the back of the other, driving his axe down into its skull until finally it collapsed. With a shriek of rage and grief, Penelope unleashed one final, desperate spell, only to be overwhelmed by the combined assault of axe, spell, and dagger. As her body fell, she gasped, "I'll see you soon, my sweet." Among her notes, they found mention of the orbs, its rumoured connection to the ancient spires around Kronos, and whispers that it could bring back the dead. Troubled, but triumphed, the trio returned to Hilltown. The court wizard accepted the notebook with a solemn interest. Lord Crowthorne gave them the gold and a dismissive thanks, but it was enough. Later that night, back at the Grey Mare Tavern, as firelight flickered and drinks were poured, the trio were joined by three unfamiliar faces. A curious gnome with sparkling eyes named Jojo, a stoic half-orc named Ogblog, and a dark elf with a quiet menace, Dalamar. Something stirred in the air. Fate, perhaps. Introductions were made, drinks were shared, and though none said it aloud, they all felt the same pull on their bones. This was only the beginning.